If you're struggling in your relationship, you are not alone. You know, we can all slip into habits unintentionally that slowly erode the love we have. And amazingly, it's the small everyday patterns, not just the big betrayals, that can actually cause the most damage. Today we'll uncover the 3 relationship pitfalls that most of us fall into unknowingly, and we'll explore how to turn them around for a stronger connection. Hi, I'm Dr. Arya, a clinical psychologist specializing in high performance, resilience and relationships. And I work with clients from Academy Award winners to the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. This channel aims to enhance your understanding of your own psychology and others so that you can experience greater peace, joy and wisdom no matter what life throws at you. Now, I've studied human behavior for over 20 years. I coach people to optimize their mindset and performance, and even I fall into these traps in my romantic relationship. So don't be dismayed if you recognize these patterns in yourself. You know, with greater self-awareness, we can change our actions for the better, turning really difficult challenges into stepping stones for deeper intimacy and trust. So let's get started. The first subconscious trap we fall into is avoidance of conflict. Now, conflict is a natural part of any relationship, yet so many of us shy away from it. We see it as a sign of incompatibility, or we fear that it will push our partner away. Now, deep down, this avoidance often stems from learned behaviors in our childhoods, past traumas, or this misconception that harmony means the absence of disagreements. Now, for years, I avoided conflict with my partner because I was afraid of hurting her. And I subconsciously thought that this conflict would lead to the end of the relationship. The irony is that it was the avoidance of conflict that ended up being the kiss of death. Now, whenever we constantly avoid conflict, we actually create an environment where our emotions and issues fester beneath the surface. And over time, this builds up walls of resentment, but it also deprives the relationship the opportunity to grow. And that's what happened in my previous marriage. So what can we do if we're stuck in this pattern? It begins by seeing that whenever we avoid conflict, the issue doesn't magically resolve, but it actually worsens. And the longer we avoid it, the bigger and the harder the problem is to tackle. The surprising truth is that conflict, whenever we approach it constructively, is actually a gateway to deeper connection. It's through navigating conflict that we truly and more fully understand ourselves and our partners. That's why it's so important that we create a safe space where both partners can talk about their feelings and their worries without this fear of judgment. This means actively listening instead of formulating a response in our heads with what we're going to say. It means seeking to understand the other person instead of judging why or how they see the situation and how they feel. It means sharing vulnerably and courageously what you're not telling them and what you're scared to say. And I know how difficult that can be. When you're prepared to create space for conflict though, and you approach it as a team, you'll not only resolve issues more effectively, but you're paving the way for a more open, a more trusting, and a more resilient bond. If you'd like to explore more topics related to personal development, mindfulness and relationships, please hit the subscribe button and feel free to leave your thoughts or your experiences or suggestions in the comments below. The second trap is shutting down. Now, whenever a conversation with our partner becomes overwhelming or too heated, our instinct is often to withdraw. Now, it's completely understandable. It's a self-protective mechanism, a sort of emotional armor that we put on, especially when we feel like we're being cornered or criticized or unheard. It's so much easier to shut down than to be vulnerable, to hide rather than to risk getting hurt. This pattern might trace back to our younger days whenever showing emotion wasn't received well, or we might just feel overwhelmed by the weight of the situation at hand. But shutting down has its own repercussions. Whenever we go silent or we emotionally disconnect, we're inadvertently sending this message to our partner that their feelings don't matter, or that we're not willing to engage anymore. And this can lead to a cycle of frustration and distance, as the other person might feel the disconnection and then subconsciously fear that they're going to lose the other person. Now, I get it, I really do. It's so hard to open up whenever we feel attacked or misunderstood or unloved. And that's why it's critical that each partner creates a safe space in which both people can be vulnerable. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, it's vital to work towards breaking it. You know, if you don't tackle it in this relationship, it'll simply rear its head in the next. Now, it can help to understand why you shut down in the first place. Is it a defense mechanism, or is it a fear of confrontation? When did you learn this? Again, often it stems from our childhood experiences. It's important to recognize that this isn't who you are. It's a coping mechanism that you learn to protect yourself. And that means what is learned can also be unlearned. So whenever you feel that urge to withdraw, pause, breathe, and perhaps even let your partner know that you need a moment rather than just going silent. Even this simple acknowledgement initially can make a difference. If one partner is getting too heated, you can agree on taking a little break and you'll return to the discussion when there's less tension. During that time, remind yourself that shutting down isn't the solution. Yes, it's a temporary escape, but it doesn't do anything to resolve the underlying issues, and it will simply drive an even larger wedge between you and your partner. Now, taking that first step to open up is scary, and there's nothing we can do to avoid or prevent the fear. It's actually about facing the fear, feeling the fear, and courageously opening up. Even if it's saying, I'm hurt or I'm scared, you can take one small step at a time towards staying open, communicating your feelings, and letting your partner know what's going on inside your head and inside your heart. And you know, whenever we share vulnerably from our heart, I've always found this connects to the other person's heart, which then allows for this deeper and more meaningful connection. The third silent killer in relationships is blaming your partner. We have all been there. Something goes wrong and our immediate reaction is to find fault, not in ourselves, but in our partner. It's so much easier to point a finger, to lay the blame on them. It's a defensive mechanism, but it's also such a damaging cycle. Blaming ends up fostering resentment and hostility. And whenever we blame, all understanding ceases. When we blame, we shift the focus from resolving the issue to suddenly determining who's at fault. And we miss this opportunity to understand each other's perspective and feelings. I know it's tough. I experience this myself, and it's human to want to be right, to defend our ego. But what does it cost us? The intimacy, the connection, the relationship that we value so much, and more importantly, an opportunity for self-growth. You know, if everyone else changes, we'll still be the same person, with the same triggers and the same insecurities. So what do we do to break the cycle? It starts with self-awareness, recognizing when we're placing blame instead of addressing the problem. It's about understanding that it's not about who's right or wrong. This is all about finding a solution together, about nurturing a partnership. So it's an opportunity to practice empathy, to try to see the situation from your partner's perspective with their eyes, and to keep an open mind and an open heart. So you can ask open-ended questions, try and listen without interrupting, and really attempt to understand their feelings even if you don't agree. It's about creating a space of safety and understanding. Of course, this is easier said than done, but remember, a loving relationship is a partnership. And by moving away from blame and embracing the responsibility to create a more solid and loving relationship, we then move towards deeper understanding, towards a stronger connection, and towards more harmony. Relationships, as beautiful as they are, require constant effort and understanding. And these three unconscious habits, avoiding conflict, shutting down, and blaming our partner, are common traps that we all fall into. But they slowly erode the connection, the love, and the trust that we have with our partner, often without us even realizing it. It's essential to recognize these patterns in ourselves, not to beat ourselves up, but to improve and grow both individually and as a couple. We all have the power to turn our relationships around, to foster a deeper understanding and a stronger connection with our partner. And remember, a loving relationship isn't about avoiding conflicts or blaming each other. It's about facing challenges together, about understanding each other's perspectives, and about growing as a team.